bone's connected to the foot bone. The foot bone's connected to the ankle bone. The ankle bone's connected to the leg bone. Let's shake them skeleton.
Hello humans, welcome to the M Word, the Manx Sports podcast, brought to you by Martin. That's me.
I'm Matt.
That's him. Welcome back, Matthew. How are you? Still ill?
Just about getting over it. A few sniffles, but I'm
now
surviving.
Now you're giving me a cold, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Lovely. Quick question about fuel.
Right.
It's a bit random. But I noticed in petrol stations they sell fuel for point something of a penny. So you can buy a litre, I think it's a litre, for say 127.9p.
Okay.
So if I went and bought a litre of fuel, would I pay 127.9 or would I pay 128? Because they'd round it up, wouldn't they?
I would have thought you'd pay the 0.9, but it just makes it sound better, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, but you can't pay 0.9, can you? Because it's, because they don't do, they'd round it up, wouldn't they? You don't see any debit card £1.27.9p, do you? So we wish they'd just round it up, is my point. But then I was thinking, what was the last thing you bought that wasn't a full penny rounded up? To show your age, what was the last thing you remember buying? Probably nothing because you're too young, aren't you? Mojos, do you remember them?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Right, I guess might remember them because she's more around my age. They used to buy them for half a p.
Right.
There's no shilling and thuppenny, I'm not that old. But half a p. Yeah.
Right.
I digress. Fuel, round it up, please. Just like I think our show sponsors, billboards.im, digital advertising, in town, C-Terminal. Want to get your brand out there, want to be seen, they're the boys to go and see. So go and visit billboards.im, get in touch, future of advertising. Thanks again to those guys for helping. So, Matthew, on the introduction, wasn't a fuel-related bit of music, but I hope you recognise it from your speaking of childhood.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago, though.
Okay, can you sing the rest of the song for me?
Absolutely not.
No, okay. So that's knee bone connected to the leg bone, quite relevant, as today we're joined by Ruth Cooil, who's physio. So, Ruth, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. And it's Bradshaw's the maiden name.
It was,
For those that, maybe.
Yeah.
How long have you been married?
18 years. Yeah, so quite a long time now.
I quite like the, before I get onto how Manx you are, I think the name's very very Manx in the sense of, I call you Ruth Cooil or call you Ruth Cooil, which sounds very Manx.
It does sound very Manx, but if you cross the water, you get Coil.
Coil, right,
yeah,
okay.
not good.
Right, yeah, no, that's not good. No. We'll go with Ruth Cooil, that's fine. So you come over Manx of the hills?
I am Manx, but Mum and Dad are from Stockport.
Right, okay. So you were born on the island?
I was born on the island,
okay. Manx, we'll go with that.
Yeah.
And then what area of the island were you brought up in?
So, Onken, went to Ashley Hill Primary, and then St Ninians.
The legendary that is Ashley Hill.
Absolutely, all the best people went there, yeah.
So, tend to agree with that. So in that awesome school, was that your first inkling of sport?
Yeah, it was. I started doing gymnastics at Ashley Hill. It was just a tiny club, only a few of us in it, and they wrote my dad in to come in and help out. And it went from there, really.
Did he have a background in either gymnastics or sport in general?
No, none whatsoever.
Right.
So I totally get the blame for roping him in.
Right.
Yeah.
So that being the sports hall down there, because you're doing gymnastics with the school rather than a local club.
Yeah, absolutely, just in the school hall. And then when I went to Park Road, Dad set up the gym club there, and then that developed into St Ninian's Gym Club, and then on to Manx Gymnastics on Glencountry Road.
So he was full in then.
Yeah, totally full on.
So obviously for him as well, and I guess it was if he wasn't any background in gymnastics, it was a learning curve for him about...
Yeah, taking all his coaching exams doing all of that, and then raising all the money for building the gym. And
So that's the Bradshaw that's down on
Glencountry Road, yeah.
Yeah.
So
he just headed up the fundraising side. Well, not to say just is the wrong word, but yeah, he headed up that side of it.
Yeah, he did, and was quite heavily involved in special needs coaching and gymnastics for that, which I subsequently then got involved in. So a lot of fundraising, and there's probably about 400 kids in the club now. Right. So
big footprint.
Yeah.
The gymnastic, what age were you starting at that at school?
Yeah, I was probably about 9,
right.
I think, when I started, and then continued on till I was about 13.
Right. Enjoy it, I assume?
Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Do you specialise in an area? Because again, or was it more just a bit of everything at that age?
Yeah, really, back then it was just floor and vault. We didn't have like beam and bars. We didn't have that until quite a bit later on, really. Just the equipment wasn't over here. So yeah, floor and vault was mainly what I did, and then it came to a bit of an abrupt end when I was 13.
Yeah, so talk through that.
I broke my back doing the high jump actually at school.
Right. Ashley Hill. Park Road now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So unfortunately, it was about 3 months before going. Well, I was meant to be going to the Faroes for Island Games to represent gymnastics. So I still went to the games, but obviously couldn't compete. So I had quite a tough time over the next couple of years, because back in the day, like nowadays, you'd just be like, right, come on, get up, get going, get doing some exercise. Back then, I had to wear like a plaster jacket.
All right. Okay.
I was in that for easily a year to keep me upright. So going through your teenage years at school, that wasn't ideal. I got called ninja because everybody just kept knocking on my back, and I looked like I had a shell on.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
Yeah.
If I could say, how did you actually break your back? Because I'm just thinking of the high jump.
On the landing, so the mats were apart at the other side, and my feet hit the floor, and that just kind of ricocheted. So I broke 2 vertebrae. Luckily, not like to the extent, obviously, that it caused any long-term damage. But at the time, I couldn't do anything.
Sounds like a lawsuit to me.
It wasn't back then, but it would be nowadays, probably. Yeah.
I'm always interested actually because you hear of people, have accidents, some break their back and are paralysed, some aren't. Is that more just about the type of injury on your back?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Mine was what they call wedge fractures of the vertebrae, so it wasn't like complete fracture of each of them, and it didn't affect my spinal cord. Right. So that's why I was luckily okay.
How long were you in hospital for that?
Well, I actually went home the same day and then was called back to say that I had broken it. Right. But I wasn't in hospital. They just treated it out of hospital. So
and that's mainly the back brace and then rest.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah, and obviously physio. So later on down the line. So and that was probably had a few niggles before that, knees and stuff. So had a bit of an introduction to physio world, but breaking my back was probably the time that I kind of got a bit more insight into what physios did. Yeah, so yeah.
So just on the gymnastics front, again, as an observer of the sport, not a lot of it, but it's a younger person sport for sure, is it?
Yeah, I think it's getting...
Bear in mind, you're going to the games at 13 at this stage, 14.
Yeah, it definitely is. But people are lasting longer in the sport now. I think there's so much more awareness of strength and conditioning and looking after the gymnast bodies that, people are still competing at 23, 24. So, which is a lot different to maybe 20 years ago. You were kind of done and dusted by 16, 17. Wow. So, they're lasting a lot longer nowadays.
Yeah. It's a big sport on the Isle of Man, isn't it? The gymnastics. It seems to be a lot. Again, I'm not particularly au fait with it, but that's the impression I get. Let alone the centre that's there. You hear of many friends that have children that are in the.
Yeah, it's a good sport for learning your basic skills, I think, and your discipline and learning how to jump, land, run properly. Climb, get an overall kind of good body awareness, really. Right. So I think a lot of parents like it for that, and obviously some go on to, and we've had really good representation at Commonwealth level over the years, which is lovely to see, really. Yeah. So
has it changed over time as well? From I guess I look back at my school days, and as a male, if you're doing gymnastics, there was probably some jibbing going on for doing it. Is it much more of a multi-sex sport now than it was?
Yeah, I think so. I think because people can see, it's got more coverage on the telly, and people can see the strength required and the skill level required for it. Especially, the male gymnasts on the rings and the high bar. It is phenomenal what they can do. Yeah. So I think you don't get as much stick now as you maybe would have done
back then.
Is it still part of the curriculum in that sense,
Yeah, they still do it in schools now. Yeah, so it is part of because it's good for those basic skills, I think. So it's stuck. So
How disappointed were you to miss the games, or at the age of 13?
I was
it?
distraught.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, it was a real low point because it was like very sudden. It was my first games, and I was really proud to be representing the island, and then it came to an end.
Right.
But
you're saying you still went up?
I did still
go. It was
go.
in Faroes.
Yeah, I did still go, but just to support.
Right. Okay.
But I think it shapes you though. Everything for a
Yeah.
reason.
And certainly at that younger age as well, it would. I'm sure.
Yeah.
So then you finish school. You go on to uni.
Yeah, just.
Right.
Yeah, I kind of bombed out of it in my A level, so I got a place at all the unis that I wanted to, I applied for, which is great. And then the A level results day came, and despite a lot of hard work, they weren't quite what they should have been. So a lot of ringing around, a lot of nagging,
Right.
and I eventually got accepted at Sheffield.
Okay, and that was in.
Oh,
No, in the sense of what you were going to study. Sorry.
yeah, physio.
Yeah.
So,
So was this something you'd always want to? You talked obviously about the injury, and maybe that was starting to shape the thought process about. So I guess doing physio and getting physio at 14, that was like, this is quite interesting. Is that?
yeah, I just loved it. Headmaster at St Ninian's tried to persuade me to be a doctor, but I fundamentally knew I probably wasn't brainy enough.
Right.
And I was quite adamant that physio was a good career to go into, which to my mum's distress when I told him quite categorically that I didn't want to be a doctor and no, I was going to be a physio. But I always wanted to do it, and it's so versatile, such a wide area of things that you cover in physio, not just obviously the sports side.
Yeah. I think that's the career I'd probably, looking back when you were 14 and asked what career you want, and I want to be a fighter jet pilot, and in hindsight I didn't have the brains to think that wasn't going to happen. Physio was probably something I'd have, again, having done, I was going to say sportsman, I wouldn't quite call myself a sportsman, but done sports all my life. I might save myself about £1 million in physio fees as well. Something I wish I'd done. So time at uni, how was that? On the lash all the time, I assume, or studying hard?
Studying hard. Physio was a nightmare.
Yeah,
you
you're
were
saying
like,
that because your parents are listening.
Probably no, it was literally full time.
Right.
So, and obviously going off on placements and that, where you were working really.
So they're local hospitals type of placements?
Yeah, you went around all the different hospitals and did about 6 weekly placements each in the different areas of physio over the 3 years. I was so homesick though. I probably didn't make the most of uni life, certainly in the first year. I think had I have gone to Liverpool, I would have been on the first boat home, but Sheffield was a bit harder to get from, and my sister was there as well, so that helped. I did love what I was learning though, and absolutely knew that's what I wanted to do, so that helped.
And did you specialise in an area of physio,
No.
or is it just broad?
No, with physio degree, you do lots of the different areas. So that can be respiratory physio, so people with chest conditions, working in intensive care, working with patients who have had a stroke, working with children. It's so wide, the scope of physio. So no, when you're training, you don't specialise. It's broad everything. And when you first qualify, it's broad everything. You do rotational post.
I kind of... obviously my interactions always with physios have been just sports related. You kind of forget they do. It's probably the smallest part of what goes on, and probably the least important bit really in the scheme of things.
Yeah, I think it's all relative to everyone, but you do. Yeah, sometimes you do have to put it into perspective. You can be treating an amputee or someone who's got a real life limiting condition, as opposed to a pulled hamstring.
That is important though, my hamstrings.
Of course.
Yeah. So those, I'd imagine as well, even at that, it was at 18, 19, being in those hospitals and clinics, just seeing such a wide range of different problems, I guess. It's pretty eye-opening, I'd imagine, at that age.
It is, and you're having to deal with quite significant things, because although obviously you're treating the person that's got the problem, the families are all involved. There's a lot of communication with the wider team. So physio within a hospital setting and the sporting setting is very much a team effort. Physio in isolation isn't the answer. So so it's good from that point of view.
And do you see a difference between when you're dealing with athlete physio and just, let's call them normal day to day, the psychology of that, is that different?
Yeah, I think there's a real determination with the athletes to get back to their sport quickly.
Does that help you as a physio, or sometimes hinder you because they're too busy, want to be running the next day?
I think there has to be an acceptance as a physio. You have to, the tissue healing process, how long things take, the reality of the injury. It's our job to try and get that across to the athlete, but also, the athletes in their world of sport, and sometimes, they're not going to follow what you want them to follow, so you have to go with, risk management, document it, and go with the flow, really.
I might be guilty of that. So as you get to the end of uni and you then start getting involved in GB and when
I finished uni, I started working Barnsley District General, and that was doing my rotational physios posts. So going through your core stuff like orthopedics, respiratory, those neurology.
So this is post finishing your degree.
Yeah, you're qualified physio, but you tend to get a good grounding and do 6 monthly rotations in different areas.
And sorry to interrupt. Is that part of that for you to find where, not you, but generally physios to find what ticks their boat and why they want to focus?
Yeah, it's to consolidate what you do at uni, but also you start to get an inkling of where you want to be later on and where you want to specialise. And for me, when I came back to the island, I was always wanting to come back here. So I kind of took the first job that came up, which actually I was full-time physio in intensive care when I first came back over here, and did that for a couple of years.
Right.
Prior to a job coming up in physio outpatients in more the musculoskeletal area.
Okay.
And then once I did that, I was actually asked by British Gymnastics to physio for their rhythmic gymnastics team.
Okay. How did that come about? I appreciate it. Just don't go through a book, and they must have, come across you, or
one of the girls that I trained with, and also she worked over here, went back to England and started working at Lilleshall.
Right.
And she put them in contact with me, and obviously then you apply and they decide whether they want you or not.
That's a paid role, is it?
No,
okay.
Voluntary.
Right, okay.
All of physio sport is voluntary.
Right, okay.
Certainly for like Commonwealth Games, Island Games, no pay, take your annual leave from work.
I wouldn't. I just don't know in the GB setup whether obviously slightly bigger scale, I guess, than locally.
If you're doing events, at that time it wasn't paid.
So you just see that as just, one, you want to help, obviously, but also, you're interested in the sport and helping athletes.
It's experience. It's a real opportunity to go to Worlds, Europeans. It gives you a great deal of knowledge about an event setup and what the athletes are going through at a high level competition. So you're fairly willing to do it voluntarily.
And were you working with the whole gymnastics team, or male, women, or different?
I worked with the female rhythmic gymnastics team.
Rhythmics, what's that?
Pardon?
What's rhythmic? Sorry.
Rhythmics,
Floor,
the balls and the
okay.
hoops and the ribbons. So that was a team of 6 girls. We're doing that. It was a group one, and also with the individual rhythmic gymnasts as well. And then I did the artistic gymnasts, like GB versus Russia and competitions like that. So. And
was that what you applied for? Or did you apply for gymnastics GB, and then they kind of look at what you
they just
background and then
they just decided what events needed covering really, and sent you in that direction.
Right. Did you meet athletes like in the build-up? Were you meeting athletes before, or was it just straight to the event?
Yeah.
This is your physio over here, and you're introduced to six gymnastics.
In at the deep end, so you don't know them before, and
which must make it a little bit more difficult to know. Yeah.
It is. You have to build up a rapport, a trust, really, really quickly. I remember at Worlds, which was in Hungary, one of the gymnasts got on the plane to decide to tell us that she'd injured her back the day before. So when we got to the event, which was like the biggest event she'd ever do, she couldn't actually bend backwards. Well, if you look at rhythmic gymnastics, it's fairly important that they can do that. So, trying to work with her, work with the coach, who was Bulgarian and quite scary, and get her to a point where she could compete in a really, really short space of time is really challenging, because back then funding depended on results, and there was quite a pressure to get someone to compete at the level that they should be able to compete at.
So with regard to gymnastics, as an outsider, certainly maybe more historically, you mentioned a coach there. They were pushed quite hard at a young age. I presume that doesn't go on so much nowadays.
No, they're much more well looked after, the gymnasts now. There's a lot more governance around it, and they're really cared for. And although way back it was bad and there were lots of stories out there, it's a lot better now. So and it needed to be.
yeah, I'm sure. So you've did a couple of years with GB.
Yeah.
You're obviously back on the Isle of Man. So that travelling away, are you paying for all of that?
No, work? They pay for your travel and expenses.
Just your time.
Yeah.
I say just, but your time.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you mentioned Hungary there. You were in Hungary. And where else? What other places did you get to?
Granada, Geneva. So a good bit of travelling. Yeah. Hungary was funny actually. I was 34 weeks pregnant with Matthew, so that was quite a challenge.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Right.
Bit, carrying the treatment couch and all the bags, and probably shouldn't have done it, but there you go.
And that was all just about for you gaining experience. And
yeah, and it was a long time at the side. I started doing Island Games back in Gibraltar. That was my first one before I qualified as a physio assistant, and then that same year as doing the GB stuff in Hungary, I was it was Guernsey Games, I think. So Island Games has carried on from there, really.
Yeah. So that was, I think it was. Yeah. And does it differ? You look at Manx athletes and being in that Manx environment, Mrs. Cooil, and how does that? Is there a massive difference between that and you're looking at GB level in the mentality of athletes?
I think if you compare our Commonwealth team with a GB team, we've got work to do still, but we're getting to that kind of professional level now. Island Games is kind of one step down. It's a really, really good stepping stone for going on to Commonwealth Games. And actually it's probably the highest competition a lot of our Manx athletes will compete at. It's good because it's multi-sport, lots of obviously islands compete, so it's a great experience for them. And within that the competition varies. Some sports the competition's really high at Island Games, others maybe not so much so, but that going away, being in a team environment, staying in the same place, following kind of the rules, if you like, wearing team kit, all of that stuff is really good for the athletes to get aware of and used to. At
Island Games, is it just, I presume there's a couple of physios there, is it? Because the team's so big.
It varies. When I first started, I went with Roger Watterworth, who was with the swim team, but we tended to treat everybody. I then did a few games with gymnastics, and then over more recent years, I've been physio just for the swimmers. And I say just for the swimmers, obviously there's many knocks on the door and I don't say no, so do treat others. But I think physio's got, I suppose people see the benefit of physio being at games more now. So a lot of the other sports will take their own physio with them now, so which is good.
Probably long days, I guess, at the games.
Always long days, yeah. Whenever you're travelling with a team, it's early up, especially with swimmers. You're up 6:30, you're in the pool for heats in the morning, you're treating all afternoon, then they're back for finals at night, you're getting your food about 10, then you're doing any bits that need doing physio wise before everybody gets their head down. So it's plus you're doing at Island Games, you're doing the cooking, the cleaning, the washing of all their kit, so you're jack of all trades.
At least the massive pay salary is fine for that.
That'd be zero.
I'm sure the athletes are appreciative of it.
They do.
So quickly, how come you're doing swimming then, rather than with a background in gymnastics?
Just how it's worked out, really. Probably I can blame Marcus for that. So he was a swimmer.
He's your partner.
My husband, yes. So he's from a swimming family and always been involved in swimming, and I kind of drifted away a little bit from gymnastics. I coached for 24 25 years. Off the back of injuring my back, actually, I kind of put all my efforts into coaching. And then when the kids came along, you kind of go with what they're doing as well, don't you? So cycling now, dancing, and swimming's been part of my world for a long time now. So yeah.
Save costs in your household if your kids needing physio, though, I suppose, doesn't it? And they can just come and... do they not listen to you probably anyway?
They don't listen to me, no. You know, everyone says that. Oh, it must be dead handy for them to have you at home. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm still their mum, aren't I? So,
I think a lot sort of touched on me, a lot of athletes just don't listen to the physio in the sense of, I need to train tomorrow. So let alone then, and you add in the dynamics that you're the mother, then you're just like, whatever, mum.
Yeah, I'm quite harsh at home as well. If they're not doing their exercises or foam rolling or whatever, they've got no chance.
So while you're obviously travelling away with the island, etc., you're working up the hospital.
Yes.
And that career's developing. Talk us through a bit.
Yeah, so like I say, when I first came back, I was ITU physio, then that changed roles.
So that must be, sorry to pick on that or start with that area, that must be quite challenging as well, because intensive care, that it's the grimmer side, I guess, of physio.
Again, it's the positives and the negatives, really. You know, obviously we do, you know, people come out the other side of ITU and you've really made a massive difference. And obviously, you know, if patients ventilated, you're talking a lot to the family and, you know, discussing what the treatment you're doing, and you build up quite a rapport. And then the rehab after being on ITU is quite long, can be, and extensive. But yeah, there's the downside as well, you know, and I remember distinctly, you know, we had, you know, someone came in from actually a spectator for TT, came in, had collapsed. He'd actually got himself to A&E, but collapsed in A&E, was seriously ill, ventilated, got him well enough to fly home, had a reaction to the drugs on the way to the airport, came back into ITU, and, you know, eventually he didn't make it, and his family from Germany didn't actually make it over. So there's that side of it as well. So you do have to be quite resilient as a physio, I think, and you have to deal with quite a lot.
And not to particularly pick on that case, but when you talk about ventilated, you're talking about people that obviously are on life support in essence. So what kind of things are you working with them on that?
So,
you know, I guess keeping muscles working ultimately, but what kind of thing
passive
is it?
movement. So you're moving upper limbs, lower limbs to prevent them stiffening up and that. But mainly chest physio, so keeping the airway clear. So I suppose probably best way to describe it, I'm sure everybody's seen on like Casualty when they've got a bag and they're squeezing the bag for the patient. Okay. So we'll do that and put tubes down to suction rubbish, sputum off the lungs and that kind of thing, to keep their airways and their lungs clear, prevent infection while they're being ventilated on the machine.
Right. Wow. Sorry, so then after ICU?
Yeah, so went on then and started specialising then more in musculoskeletal physio. So was working in outpatients and went away and did my postgrad certificate in sports physio. At the time, I was physioing for Vaggers as well. I did everything. I just like any sport, it's fine. So physio for Vaggers for 5 years, which was great. Loved it. And then became more specialist in treating sports injuries, and did my masters when Matthew was probably 3.5, Becky 6 months. In orthopaedic medicine.
That was in Middlesex Uni. Was that a distance type of learning thing, or did you go down?
I went away. I think I did 9 weekends away over the 3 years. So qualified with a masters in orthopaedic medicine. Which then ultimately allowed me to do injection therapy. So part of my role now at the hospital is I work alongside the orthopaedic consultants doing specialist clinics for them. So if you get referred from the GP with an upper limb problem, you don't necessarily see the consultant, you'll see me, because I can obviously do the physio bit, list for surgery, do injections, so do basically the that role other than obviously the surgery bit. So, and my other part of that, although I'm 50% clinical up at Nobles, I'm also acute therapy service manager, which means I manage a team of 71.
Right, wow.
So,
Okay.
but that's a really nice mix of physiotherapists, occupational therapists, and speech and language therapists.
Okay.
So,
Can you talk us through those different types of...
So, there's 3 different areas that I look after. So, acute therapists, so they're all the ward therapists, so occupational therapy and physio. So, occupational therapists are the therapists who will help you get washed and dressed and do maybe kitchen assessments, see how well you can manage in the kitchen, do adaptations to homes,
Right, okay.
to make it easier for you, you know, after you've had maybe a stroke or you've had surgery, and they'll go out to your home and help to do that.
Right.
And then my outpatient team, that's all physios, but that's spread between women's health physio, hand therapy, pain, breast care physio for people who've had breast cancer, and self-referral. So big team there. And then my children's team, so they look after all the kids. And within that team, there's physios, OTs, and speech and language therapists.
Right.
So
What do speech and language therapists...
So they, I mean,
I mean, it sounds obvious, but kind of...
Yeah, it's learning language skills, and it's learning about, you know, going into schools and helping children who maybe haven't got the speech, in order for them to help them learn. It's really important for our speech and language team to be into schools really early in those early years, because obviously it has a massive impact if you haven't got your speech and language early on, to then go on and learn later on. So great team to manage.
It seems, I don't know why I wouldn't think that would fall under a physio banner.
It falls under therapies.
Right.
So really, it's gone away from a physio manager's physios, an OT manager's occupational therapists. It's gone away from that because we're much more integrated now. We work much more as teams. So it could be any one of us, any one profession that manages that mix of talent, really.
Okay. So go back to 2006. That was your first experience in Commonwealth Games for the
Yes.
Island. How did that come about, and how was that experience? And I know you've been to many since as well.
Yeah, so Melbourne, it was amazing. I was so lucky to be asked to go and physio with one other physio. Isla was physioing at that Games too. Great experience, really good learning curve. Obviously only 2 of us for a team, quite a big team, 23 athletes I think we had at that Games. But yeah, just soaked it up really, learnt a lot, started working with athletes then that I'm still working with now. Right. So that's really nice to see 13 years worth of progression. But yeah, I think probably my lasting memory of Melbourne would be watching Cav in the scratch race. And it was hilarious really, because we were all in this porter cabin outside the house that we were staying in the Games Village. And on this little 14-inch TV, all the managers had gone to watch, and we were all left there, you know. So didn't have a Scooby-Doo what was going on at all. But that mobile home thingy was rocking. And amazing experience and great. Obviously got medal and good games.
I'd imagine you feel, and rightly so, part of that overall team aspect. I
think you've got to remember as a physio, you're small part of what the athlete achieves. You know, we had 2 shooters there, Trevor and Wilfie, they got bronze. And, you know, Trevor, he won't mind me saying, he had a few issues leading up to that event. You know, he had really bad headaches. He also got dust from firework in his eye at the opening ceremony, which was quite critical when you're a shooter, that you can see. So, you know, all those things that you're dealing with and you're helping them get to that point in the best possible condition is amazing that you're part of it, but ultimately you're a small part of it because they've worked so hard to get to that point. So I think
if you've got 100% though, and their training's 80, there's the physios, a percentage.
You add that little bit as well, don't you? Along with sports psychology, strength and conditioning, nutrition, all the rest that goes along with making an athlete who they are. But yeah, I love the team part of it. Absolutely love it. So great games.
You touched on there the psychology of it as as a do you find you have to bring elements of that into your job, I guess?
Yeah, definitely.
Or maybe a lot.
Yeah, not probably as skilled as Rich at it, but certainly over the years you have to, because the athletes don't, if they do engage in sports psychology, you need to know how that athlete works, and it can be quite critical because you're the one that's there with them. So you can easily say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. You've got to know if, when they're lying on the treatment couch having their physio, whether they want to talk or whether actually they, visualising what they're going to do, and actually you just need to shut up, which is quite hard for me. But you have to know that athlete really well. And that's probably where I've benefited, that because I've known a lot of the athletes for so long. So Tim is a prime example. He got obviously silver at Gold Coast.
Shoot it.
Yeah. And, I've known him for a long time. So, you spend that 24 hours with him beforehand, and hopefully on the day you're doing the right things that meets his requirements, if you like, to perform at a high level. And he's done amazing. He Olympics getting fourth, just missing out on that bronze, but he's a very, very rounded, very well prepared athlete. He knows absolutely what he's doing. So you have to make sure that your part you play in that is as good as he's prepared as well. So
you must have seen the difference then with the going away with GB, where you put with athletes and kind of treating them immediately on day one. You don't know them. The difference then to spending time with athletes and seeing that value that you can add by understanding them a little bit more.
Definitely. There's much more value in knowing the athletes, I think, and obviously I treat them over here in between all these major events as well. And actually Grace Harrison, that was really nice, because she was at can't remember which games now. Was it Glasgow?
12 that was, I think.
Glasgow,
14.
yes, it was
14.
Glasgow. And she made the all-around final, and I actually coached in gymnastics.
Right, okay.
And I coached Grace actually when she was little, and ended up being with her when she was doing the all-around, and fantastic at moment and experience, that we both shared, and but knowing Grace so well really helped in that situation. So Did
you ever think about getting back into sport after we jumped back, but obviously after you broke your back and you were better? Was that something, or have you ever got back into sport or not?
I was really invested in coaching early on, and then at uni I did do a bit of volleyball. We were really lucky to have GB team member was at uni at Sheffield there, so did a bit of volleyball, and last year I did have a go at the 10s. That was an experience.
So bike time trialing.
I did ask Matthew beforehand whether I could do it, because I didn't want to embarrass him. So and that was a really good eye opener. But no, I've not. I've just ended up fixing everybody since.
Right. I'm interested in the reason why you did the 10. Talk me through that.
I think
the time trial.
Yeah, a challenge for me, definitely, but also to get an idea of what Matthew was going through as a cyclist, and what all the young athletes go through. I think it's really important. We're very good as parents, aren't we, at standing on the sidelines and yelling and having an opinion about how they're doing and whether they should, pedal faster. And so it was good for me to do that, to, a realisation of how hard it is. Like, he goes 10 minutes faster, more than 10 minutes faster than me. I was categorically rubbish. But, and I think, gosh, none of our kids go into their sports to not perform at their best, or to try and get the best result, or, be the best in the game they're doing. But I think sometimes we lose sight of that a little bit. And it's good to get the balance.
It is. And obviously if you're treating athletes, it maybe helps you look through their eyes. I mean, that's what you're doing day to day, I guess, when you're speaking to athletes who want to train tomorrow and they're injured, and just having appreciation of the other side, having then put yourself in that position. And
definitely. And I think some recovery from injuries is a long job. Catherine Reed, I treat, we've been on a 3-year journey with her injuries, or injury to her knee, and
She's a runner, isn't she?
Yeah. And she's come out the other side of there, but that's been a lot of support, a lot of understanding, a lot of breaking down every tiny little bit. I used to drive her mad. At one time there was a bit of a love-hate relationship, because she'd come in all excited that she'd achieved something, and then, there's the next thing that you've got to do which she couldn't achieve, and it's supporting athletes through that. But
it's been rewarding. Obviously it's rewarding as they make that progress.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't have a day that goes by where I don't do something or find something that is rewarding in my job. I'm really lucky from that point of view. I love it.
And as your industry, I assume, continues to develop as more research comes out, so you're continually on a development learning curve
you're
yourself.
always learning. There's always new stuff coming out. I think as the years go on, you just end up adding more things kind of to your toolbox that you can use, which is good. There's always more to learn, always more courses to go on. I think you have to keep a bit of an open mind with physio. I think the research isn't necessarily always there behind every single thing that we do, but I think once you've got the experience of treating so many athletes, what works. There's loads of debate over kinesio tape. Oh, it's a bit of sticky plaster, but applied in the right way, I know it's helped people combined with exercise. You don't just use it as a, put that on and you'll be fine. Right. But other people won't agree with that. So there's many a debate over things like that, over how effective massage is at certain points within your sporting time, pre, post, foam rolling. There'll be loads and loads of things that people can think about that, hasn't necessarily got 100% research behind it, and you can categorically say that works. But I think when you've got the experience, that's what comes into play, because you've used it, or you've worked in a certain way and that's helped someone. So you have to have an open mind.
And again, I imagine ultimately every athlete's different as well. So fun enough, one of the questions was about kinesio tape having been something new really into
it's
physio.
Not new, though.
Oh, right, okay.
It's many, many years old. It was 1964, I think.
Oh, okay.
Off the top of my head. And it was invented in Japan. Right. So it's been around a long time, but you'll find with any stuff, sports stuff, particularly, things come in and out of fashion a little bit. And at the moment, kinesio tape gets more coverage on the telly, and you see people taped up, and they come in all these array of colours, and GB kit have their own, and all of that. The colour makes no difference, by the way. But it's a bit more out there. It gets a mention. It's been around quite a long time.
And when you're talking there about new developments and trying new things and only through experience, have you ever worked with any athletes who may be like, oh, I don't want to try that because it's not, say someone who's never seen that tape, or I don't want to stick some tape on me, or a new method of rehabilitation that someone might be a bit hesitant towards it, or it's kind of that to how to develop, I guess.
Yeah, I think, with anything we do, it's all about consent from, the patient anyway. So, we wouldn't do any treatment prior to getting consent for a treatment anyway. So there may be people who don't particularly want to have a manipulation, or they want to try just doing exercises first before having an injection, which is the right thing to do, those kind of things.
Do you come across that often? Because I'm just, from my point of view, just wondering if you know that you're recommending something that should help, why someone would then have a basically say no in that sense.
I think it is patient choice. It doesn't happen very often, because usually you can, as a physio, you can really clearly explain why you're doing something, what the benefits are going to be.
It's that psychology magic they're doing on you. You don't even know it as a patient.
And, there's always other options anyway, so one treatment is never the be-all and end-all. You've usually got a few tricks up your sleeve that you can do instead.
I'd imagine through just your own knowledge and experience. So Matty and I turn up, we've got the same injury. Yeah. But as two athletes, our mind works differently, so you might end up treating us differently.
Totally. Yeah. You never get two people the same. You never get two injuries the same.
That's quite. Oh right, okay.
You know, they all people respond in different ways. You know, age plays a factor. You know, there's lots of, you would never get two people that are exactly the same, which makes it interesting.
Yeah, for sure. So you're involved, or you've got more involved, I think, probably a while ago now, but in sports aid, local sports aid, or IOM Sports Aid.
So before Delhi, Commonwealth, I started working for Sports Institute. So that's all our sports aid recipients. I'm one of the physios who works with them. So, which is great. It's really good team to work with. The athletes are so fortunate over here. I think there's times where they possibly don't really realise it, but the fact that they have access to, strength and conditioning, nutrition, sports psych, physio, they're well looked after, and now it's starting at an even younger age. So sports aid predominantly is from 16 onwards, really, and for when you're really starting to get some results in your sports, whereas the ethos is changing a little bit and trying to get more younger people having more knowledge as they become more specialised later on in their sport. So we have the academy now, which is for the youngest on it is 12, but really from about 14 up, and they get lots and lots of lectures, talks, testing on all aspects of sport. So
kind of testing, what's involved in that?
They do like running tests, reach tests, those just getting basic level of, so they can see how they're progressing. It's a really good insight for them, because they can very much see, one 14-year-old boy is not the same size as the next 14-year-old boy, and all of that stuff. So, and it's good because the coaches are there, the parents are there, so it's quite all encompassing. So it's a good learning program for the younger athletes. And for the parents, I guess, as well. And I think parents understanding that, there's more to their kids' life than their sport. They've got other pressures on them with school and all of that stuff. But also them understanding that actually they need the rest. Right. Their bodies have got to last them quite a long time. So well after they've maybe finished with their sport, and want to keep them in their sport. So that nicely brings us on to REDS. Talk me through what that is. Yeah, so REDS is relative energy deficiency in sport, and it's something that's been talked about a lot more now. And it's something for parents and athletes and coaches all to be aware of. It's about both in females and in males, although it's been talked about a lot more in the female world. It's about making sure that athletes are fueling properly for the races that they're doing, the events that they're doing, and the training that they're doing. And it's really hard because they can get really significant symptoms if they're not fueling properly, and it can just initially present itself as maybe a bit of fatigue, bit of lack of coordination, weight loss, but it can go on to cause more problems, certainly in females, stopping their periods, which obviously ultimately in the longer term can have an impact on them being able to conceive. So it can be quite a serious problem. So it's been talked about a lot more. It's about eating enough, resting enough, and looking after your body, really. Certainly that younger age. Yeah. Ultimately their body's developing, isn't it? So yeah. They're fueling it just day-to-day life. You're fueling it to develop and grow. You're throwing a load of stress and then under-fuel it. So you're basically looking at that. Yeah. That bridging that gap. Absolutely. And it's about just taking on enough calories, isn't it, to not be in deficit. Yeah. And is that, again, education through the athlete, the parents and the coach? Yeah. Because the coach obviously sees the athletes quite a lot as well. Yeah. I think when a lot of the younger athletes, obviously, they're at school all day, they're whizzing, then they're out training, they're not getting back till late at night, and it's like they repeat the cycle every single day. So it's just having an awareness, really, and by the academy, you know, because they're covering all different aspects of the sport in life, if you like, from time management to nutrition to injury prevention, all of that stuff, it makes it, you know, the parents more aware and hopefully get a better balance, you know.
Must be rewarding, I assume, as well, working with the youngsters and talking to youngsters.
Yeah, absolutely. And the youngsters are really lucky because a lot of the athletes who are on sports aid will come in and talk about their experiences as well. So
older athletes.
Yeah, so they get a lot of interaction with people who are currently competing at a high level. You know, Sam Brand's been in. I know you've had him on the podcast, and that you know, Sam's got his own story and his own challenges. You know, I sponsor Sam, great athlete, but, you know, with the diabetes, he never ever sees that as a hindrance, always sees it as a challenge and something he has to deal with. It's good for the younger athletes to hear that, you know, not everybody at elite level has an easy ride to that point. And I know Sam does get a bit of stick because I think some in the cycling world maybe feel that he's only competing at that level because of his diabetes, but I challenge any of them to be injecting twice in a hamper race or, you know, 3 times in Milan San Remo I don't think many would swap with him. So
well, I know I haven't got diabetes and I'm not racing at his level, so I can only imagine that's the most basic, you know.
Absolutely.
Well, I suppose maybe cut over to then some general questions we've got chatting with people as well, and questions from listeners generally about your role or roles of physios. So first of all, when you're dealing with male and or female athletes, does the approach differ? I guess certainly if females have had children, the body changes and
that can be
just add dynamics to the situation.
Yeah, that can be a factor, definitely. You know, I think sometimes there's a variation in, well, we've already touched on different psychologies, you know. Overall, I think from a physio perspective, you very much take the history behind an injury, you take all the information that you need, you assess an injury and you treat that injury, but you have to take into consideration other factors that, you know, male, female, age of patients, you know, all the rest of it as well.
Yeah, okay.
And just following on from that, would you say there's a difference in sports athletes themselves? So footballers may approach their injuries different to a shooter, or, you know, depending on what type it is and how they may be, again, pushing on the psychological side. Do you see differences in the background of what sport they've done affects how they treat?
I think different people have different views on their injuries. So you can get someone who, you know, has maybe quite a minor injury, but that's a big deal to them and in their sporting world. You know, I used to treat Dan Neen, and oh my God, he was tough. You know, he had some really significant injuries, and, you know, I probably saw Dan more than Leanne did on quite a lot of occasions in a week. And but, you know, a broken elbow to Dan was, well, it's a broken elbow, get it moving, Ruth, and I'm back on my bike, you know, and that was the deal with him. But it was quite a significant injury, so different mentalities, different ways of dealing with things. No one's sport is softer than the other. I don't say that.
And when you're looking at sport and physio and sport in life, what do you prefer doing or dealing with?
Oh, I love doing the sports physio. Right. Absolutely love doing the sports physio. I love doing the team work within sport. It's because it's also all encompassing that, you know, so there's so many different factors to it. But I love doing my private work as well, you know. I love treating, you know, the elderly, the normal everyday person, because their injuries are just as important, however they may have come about them, you know. So possibly the way I treat them is maybe a little bit different. You treat everybody as an individual.
And do athletes listen to you always?
You're joking, aren't you? you give the advice at the end of the day. You know, some athletes will follow it to the letter. Some athletes you have to rein in, and some athletes you still have to give a kick up the bum to,
Right.
you know. But all you can do is, as a physio, you know the healing process. You know how long something takes. Athletes will always challenge that longevity, always. And, you know, you have to go with it sometimes.
Yeah. But I think sometimes, like, I've found physio is like a security blanket where you get an injury, you have a problem, and like you do feel like your world's falling apart within a day. You know, I don't do anything competitive really, but I can't go out on my bike for 3 days. My head's going to fall off. So you try and get that urgent appointment to see the physio. You're texting them, and then when you see them, and it's almost often, I think, once you've got a plan, it often makes things a bit easier. But
definitely,
when you kind of feel like you're drifting and don't know what the injury is or what the problem is, so you see that physio, and it's such a comfort blanket once you've seen the physio. And
it's just that knowledge is key, isn't it? Once you know what you're dealing with and what you can do to help yourself, then you're always going to be better for that, you know. And God, Thursday is the day, you know, when someone's competing on a Saturday or a Sunday. Like Thursday, sometimes it's like a blinking hot wire. But, you know, and you're not going to do anything miraculous necessarily, but if you can do something that allows that person to compete without causing any further problems or damage, and I think that's the thing as well, you know, sometimes you do have to turn around and say, come on, you know, you're going to prolong this problem if you don't just give it a bit of time now. But you haven't got a magic wand, but
and it's a very open question, but generally, would you have tips for athletes?
I think
listen to the physio.
Maybe it's
Listen
one
to
of them.
me.
I think just look after your bodies, you know, give your bodies the rest that they deserve, you know. Do your preparation stuff beforehand, you know. Be careful after you've had a rest period, you know, if you've been on holiday, or, you know, if you're going back to a sport after you've had a little bit of a time off, you're going back using underused tendons and tissues, and therefore you're potentially overloading them if you think you can go back to doing what you did prior to that break.
All right, okay.
Go back steady, you know, it's common sense. Don't panic as soon as you get a niggle, but deal with it.
Common sense for athletes.
Well, this is true, yeah,
Easy.
good point. But do the basics, you know.
To go back to the academy point and 14, 15 year old, do you find the younger athletes are, I mean, do you find some are listening more than others, if that's a right fair reflection, or some like, whatever, I just want to get out, kick the football around?
No, you look around the room and some are just not taking the stuff in, you know. They all mature at different ages, don't they? You know, and some will take in a great deal. Some the parents will take in more and then drip feed it to them over a period of time between sessions. But they're all so different at that age. I think a lot of the research is showing, you know, not to specialise too early in a sport. I think it's hard over here. The pressure is on to, you know, be completely a cyclist or completely a rugby player or whatever that may be. But try and keep a balance between life as well. Still, you know, at that age, go to the party, you know, because if you miss out too much at that age, you're not going to be doing your sport when you're 18, 19, because you'll have had enough of it, you know.
And another really general question are the general injuries that you see? Or are they then sport specific? So obviously footballers, you might generally see leg injuries.
Usually a bit more sport specific, to be fair. Swimmers are usually shoulders and backs. You know, shooters are usually shoulders. Cyclists, knees usually. Bit of hip stuff sometimes, you know. So the injuries tend to vary with the sport, but you can get obviously random things as well. And obviously the motorbikers and that, you know.
Everything. It must be really interesting being a physio and learning all the different sports and needing to understand them really to be able to do your job.
Yeah, you do.
Effectively, or more effectively.
Definitely. I mean, you need to know exactly what they're putting their bodies through in order to be able to rehab them to the level where they can cope and you know, be able to carry out their sport without, you know, the injury returning or, you know, potentially developing other problems. So, I mean, when I first started at doing the sports aid lot, I had no clue about the enduro riders, you know, but I spent time looking at videos of them riding, seeing what pressures they were placing on their body. So, and that goes for other sports as well. So
A lot of self learning.
Yeah,
really.
You're always learning, and I think, the day that you stop learning when you're a physio and not having that passion to, you know, keep developing and keep understanding more and more, then it's probably time to pack in.
So right now you're obviously working at the hospital.
Yep.
You do some private work.
Yeah,
so
do a
people
little
want to
bit.
reach out to you.
Yeah, so I work through Stoffberg Physio in Onken. I do all my physioing down at the Sports Institute, but he does all my bookings for me.
Right.
Obviously, all the sports aid recipients know where to find me, and I'm on Twitter as well.
Can you know a handle off the top of your head?
Well, I think it's our cool physio.
All right.
Yeah.
We can add it into our footnotes with a slight Manx twang to the Ruth Cooil. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah,
It's
thank
been
you very
really
much.
fascinating. Yeah, I think again, physio's such an important part of sport.
Yeah.
I think it's certainly not overlooked, but it's easily forgotten because it's usually not necessarily the worst time, but often I guess you're dealing with times when it's the problems are occurring rather than not occurring, which I guess is part of why it's so important. But no, it's a fascinating insight. And good to understand your background. And I think from an Isle of Man Sport perspective, you obviously volunteer a lot of time as well for Isle of Man Sport, Commonwealth, Island Games, and the Academy. So I think, I'm sure a lot of athletes out there thank you for their time.
Yeah.
I say for me, it's learning of just how much. It's not just a case of, especially on the sports side, just fix a little problem. You have to know so much about the psychology and everything that can go around and affect what we may think is just a little niggle. Yeah. It's never just a little niggle. There's so much behind it, so much you have to know, and a lot more than initially falsely assumed. So I apologise.
It's all right.
We're here to educate Matthew, that's why we're here. So thanks again, Ruth.
Oh, thank you very much.
Ruth
for
Cooil.
having me.
Thank you. Cheers.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So, Matt,
Yes.
do you want to wind up for us?
Usual. So wherever you're listening, Spotify, iTunes or SoundCloud, please like, subscribe, share and leave those 5-star reviews. On Facebook we are the M Word Podcast, Twitter Manx Sports Pod, and on Instagram we are the M Word IOM. And please keep recommending guests for us, or if you are wanting to be a guest yourself, also get in touch with us because we'd love to hear from you.
For sure. On the 5-star reviews, we've got quite a few, and not this about ego, obviously, clearly, but you only have to click a couple of buttons and give us a 5-star review. It helps our rating, and obviously helps us reach a bigger audience, which is what this is about. Just about, you know, chatting about Manx stories and Manxness in general. So please do that. I also learnt, Matthew, that you've referred to Instagram before as Insta, which I believe the kids might call it. Is that right?
Yeah, I did.
I've heard it more. I'm more down with the kids now, and it's also known as the Gram. I don't know if you've come across that term. Oh, right, yeah. Okay, I just wanted to show.
Insta life and all that sort of
thing. All right, yeah, down with the kids.
Yeah,
anyway,
we know
okay.
what we're talking about.
All right. Okay, so thanks again. Thanks for letting us into your ears. It's a word out from Martin.